I heard a quote not that long ago that the brain is the last frontier. So that gelled with me because it is, in my view. We've made advances in infectious diseases, we've made great advances in cancer. Perhaps the first time I got really interested is I had a very close friend that I worked with in surgical research at the Austin who came down with early Parkinson's. She was only in her 30s. And so I walked with Sandra through a number of years as her Parkinson's advanced. And there was not that much known at that stage about Parkinson's. Now I know that the Florey has done work with Parkinson's, but it also does a lot of research with dementia. And given my age, I have a number of friends who have dementia, either themselves or their partners. And being a carer of a person with dementia is very, very hard work, both physically and emotionally. And so that is where it's more than interest, it's my passion for advancing brain research comes from those sources. About 10 years ago, maybe a little more, I started to think that my family is privileged. Every member is comfortable, particularly my children. They've got good careers, good family lives, and they're well established. So, okay, I want to leave something for my grandchildren, but why pass on money which is going to just add to privilege? So I thought, now where do I want to make a difference? And that's probably been one of the things right throughout my life is, why live if you don't make a difference? And so I thought about the interests that I have, and they are education, medical research, and environmental sustainability. And so then I thought about where should I make a difference in each of those areas. And so I have given, I think it's 4 bequests in my will to different organisations to fulfil those areas where I want to make a difference. And the Florey came up in terms of research, given that it's doing research into areas that I'm specifically interested in and I think need to be advanced, need to be supported, such as dementia research. Well, I could start by saying, giving my thanks and commendation to all those people who are working in the laboratories in the Florey, because I know from my work in research 50 plus years ago just how demanding, sometimes heartbreaking, and what long hours and difficulties you run into. When I was doing medical research, we didn't have the technology that they have now, and therefore it was often hard work physically to get experiments up and running, but you got a real spark when you had a success and a paper was written. Nowadays, okay, you've got the technology, but there's such a lot of time and effort, I know, goes in to chasing the money to pay for that research. Research has always been expensive, and nowadays I'm sure it's even more expensive than it was in my time. But where would we be without it? People will have survived because of the work we did there. Now that makes me pleased. But we won't continue to advance unless we continue to invest.